6'7".
Guy's 6'7".
Yeah.
Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy. Because I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like. I'm a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it could be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. I'm John Bruce alongside Shayne Combs, and welcome into the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio inside SOSA the Dugout in downtown Chillicothe. It is episode 107 of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's flagship podcast. And Shayne, are you excited? We got a week down, a week into the season.
It was a busy week. I tell you what, that was a really, really fun week. A lot going on. Back to school. Obviously, SOSA off and running with a great first week. And you could argue we have a second week ahead that's going to match that and then some.
Yeah, I was looking at our upcoming schedule and kind of thinking like, oh, there's going to be a night where it's going to be a little bit easier on. Nope. It's not, because we're just going to be constantly going. I know on Monday, this show's going to come out on Monday. I'm going to be down at Leesburg at Fairfield for 3 different games. Like, I don't know how much I'm going to see of it, all of them. But Fayetteville's over there for girls and boys soccer. Those are going to be really good matches. And then Huntington starts their season off for volleyball in the gym. So going to be running all over the place there.
Oh, Huntington played over the weekend, I think. They split. I think they beat RCCA, lost to Trimble. I think. Okay. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right.
Yeah, we had one of the scores. So, and that's kind of what it kind of comes down to, is there's so many different things in the fall, which is going to be one of the things we're going to talk about in our discussion here in a minute. But so many things in the fall where if you check our scoreboard, it's getting updated throughout the night, and then sometimes you might want to check it again the next morning, the Norfolk Animal Clinic scoreboard, because of just how much stuff there is. You're seeing scores from boys and girls soccer, volleyball. We don't even put the golf scores up. We don't put cross country finishes up, but like we have all of those different things coming in throughout. And then you have football on Friday nights. This week you had football on Thursday night and Saturday night. And we're trying to get out and do a lot of that coverage and also get you the scores. So sometimes we might miss something in the fall. So if we do miss something, let us know about it. It's fine. We're good. Like there's a couple different things in here where we're gonna talk about interactions we had with people throughout this week. Yeah. And we're getting out. We're doing a lot of streaming, whole lot of streaming this week. A lot of streaming coming up this week. A lot of streaming next week. And because of that, we're bound to miss something here and there. We don't want to miss anything, but in case it happens, let us know. Overtime is going to come out most weeks on Monday morning. If it's not, we're going to let you know ahead of time if there will be a slight change. But also, starting last night, will be the Highschool Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. That will be each Sunday during the football regular season. So that's going to be 10 weeks of the Highschool Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. And we're going to have between 6 to 10 coaches a week calling in. We're going to have some in-studio guests on that as well. So if you missed that episode, go back and watch that in the archives. If you missed any of our live streams this week, go back and check those out. Those are going to stay up on YouTube for as long as YouTube's around. It's going to be up on YouTube. So make sure you check that out. All of our live streams. We are going to have an upgrade in some equipment coming up this week as well. So we're trying to get better, and a big part of that is our new title sponsor, which is Holzer Health System. So we appreciate Holzer coming on and joining our group of outstanding sponsors as well. But they are going to be headlining our kind of everything that we do. So we appreciate everything that Holzer is helping out with us as well. You can see the background's a little bit different today. We'll have an updated background coming up in the future as well.
Just a lot going on, and I noticed that as we got going this week on the sponsor list, commercial list there, the growing there. So thank you. I mean, it means a lot. I think there's a lot of people that like what we do because we all share the passion in terms of media and fans of just kids and programs and wanting to promote that. So it's a great partnership across the the area, and we can't thank those people enough for supporting us.
Yeah, we were able to get out and do 3 live streams this weekend, and if you looked at different areas across the Southeast, I believe there's at least 10 other football games that were live streamed by other companies as well. So, I mean, it's great for our local athletes to be able to get highlighted across our area. We love to be able to do it a little bit that we're able to do, and it's awesome to see other people doing it as well. And then that on Thursday night over at Unioto, that was the amount of people that were on the sidelines. I mean, there's a pregame show. There's what we did, which is our biggest stream ever, which is it was a really fun game and great atmosphere. Food trucks. It was 2 packed sets of bleachers. I mean, the Jackson Band, which is unbelievable. Also, the Jackson Band, it was not even able to get in the bleachers, but you could hear them all night. They're playing alongside the bleachers. Just a phenomenal atmosphere to start off the fall season, I thought, for us. Just what were some of your thoughts on that? Before we'll talk more about the game in a little bit.
Yeah, obviously we'll talk the football part here in a little bit, but you're right. I mean, just the atmosphere would be the word that comes to mind. Just being able to take it all in. We were there early and way up top, so we had the perfect view to watch it all fill in, and it's just it was an incredible thing, which kind of will lead us right into one of the things we're going to talk about here in just a second with fall sports. But no, but it checked every box in terms of event and atmosphere that you'd want to start the season.
Yeah, and then when we talk about that, some of the advantages of the fall. Everything, when you think about fall, you don't think of things starting new, but when it comes to high school sports, the fall season, everything's new, and everyone's excited. So what are some of your thoughts on some of the advantages of the fall? I know you as a grumpy old spring coach. Some of your thoughts on the fall.
Yeah, as I started to when I thought of this particular topic, and I started thinking, I was like, am I just the poor old me spring coach, or is this true? I think there's a lot of truth to this. You tell me if I'm wrong. I think fall's first. Fall's fresh start, right? Everybody's willing to give everything a chance. It's your new year. It's your freshman year. It's your sophomore year. It's your junior year, senior year. You haven't had any other experience other than maybe a couple summer things or whatnot. You're back to school. Your roles probably change because you're a year older now, and obviously you get it. Fall's got a lot of money involved because of the football gates and so forth. So administration cares a lot, boosters care a lot, and it's more than just the football. It's the bands involved, as you just said. The cheerleaders are involved. I don't want to speak for cheerleading, but I assume like fall football, especially early before it gets cold, has to be one of the most enjoyable things to cheer because the crowds are so big and so forth. So you just throw all that in. I think that's true in all sports. I think that golf gets started a little bit before school, and then now cross country on the weekend, and it's just across the board. The volleyball's obviously picking up, and I just think there's something to that. Maybe there's people that disagree on that. I know fall coaches would probably tell you that the summer is can be annoying and hard to get people there and so forth. I get that. Every season could probably list for you the challenges they face too. But I'm telling you, there's a lot about fall that give everybody kind of a fresh start that I think makes for a little bit of what you were just talking about there at Unioto the other night.
Yeah, and then you have people who are excited because week one, everyone's excited because it's you never know what's going to happen in week one, and then can you kind of get rolling. It's kind of, if you look over at the EPL, the English Premier League just started, they had a team that moved up, which you could never do that in America. But they just moved up from the lower division, and they go play one of the greatest teams ever, and they have no chance, and all of a sudden they win. And it's like, this is a new exciting thing. Hull City with a huge upset, and then Manchester City, you would think it was burning because week one, you just never know. Like, people will freak out over what happens in week one no matter what. It could be you play a really good program, it's a great win, but then if someone beats that program, they're way down. I mean, it's just you never know what people, because you don't know. It's week one. It's one game. Like, you never know what can happen, and that's the greatness of a new season. And it's one of the things that we really like, because when we're making our preseason schedule, we're trying to figure out where we're going to go. Well, we kind of need to see some teams. That's why we do the first 5 weeks, and then we kind of figure out where we're going to go those next 5 weeks based off of kind of what happens there on the streaming. Streaming for volleyball, we know we have an idea of who's going to be good, but we don't necessarily know for sure because you never know what's going to happen. Injuries can happen. People can just kind of go anywhere at this point, moving, and maybe someone doesn't come out to play. It could make a big impact in different ways. So the thing I like most about the fall is you get to kind of see an idea, kind of a preview of what the whole school year is going to look like for us, for the schools. Also, with some of the schools, you have new administration. So it's maybe a chance for them to go out and see what their new places are going to look like as well.
You make an interesting point there about all the movement school to school now too, from this generation to a generation ago. That probably adds to a little bit of it as well. I think in a lot of ways you feel like you better promote your brand. You better, you know what I mean? Like in the day of enrollment and funding and all that different things, you need students. That's a fair point too. A lot of times there early on in the fall, you got a lot of eyeballs and people want to be a part of special things and unique things. So sometimes it becomes your, hey, look at our facilities. Hey, look at our programs. Hey, look at what we do here. Parents, look at our boosters. Look at our band program. Look at our cheerleaders and so forth. So to the point where that's a good point.
Yeah, and then you see a lot of different social media things. You also, if you're looking at Facebook or X, probably Instagram as well, you can see a lot of graphics that look the exact same because AI has decided they know exactly what you want to look at on graphics, and they all look the exact same. Maybe the colors are a little different, but it's the same font and everything. I'm just like, every time I open something, I'm like, oh, man. I couldn't do a better job of it, but I know some people that could because mine are still not very good. So let's kind of move forward onto kind of our centerpiece of the week. The centerpiece of the week, like we did this a little bit last year where we picked a topic and we kind of weaved in and out. Now, typically it was usually with basketball because we could talk the point guard position, we could talk different things like the 3-point line. In the spring, we could do it with baseball, softball. We have 5 different sports that we're going to talk about, and it's going to be scheduling. Kind of our discussion is going to be look at how your schedules are put together in each sport. How does a administrator kind of look at the future? Do they look at the gates? Do they look at the wins and losses? Do they look at a developing program or a program that maybe has to re-find its footing? So kind of a rebuilding program in that way as well. There's a lot of different things that go into scheduling.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. I think to answer your question, what makes this so difficult, first of all, we talk about it a lot year in, year out, and I don't know how you can't because it's so crucial. It's so much to do with the results that we end up reporting on. And I think what happens with the scheduling from a perspective standpoint, on the athletic director side, I'm sure you are pressured a little bit from the higher ups for money and gates, and so that has to play probably a little bit of factor in it. Sometimes, though, the dollar bill and the gates not necessarily what's best for the program year in, year out. So how do you balance that? If you ask a coach, some coaches have a whole different mindset of, they would rather go 2-8 and play a great schedule than to go 8-2 and play an easier schedule. Other coaches think that's insane. They want to win and they want to try to build. So there's so many different factors to what goes into this. Sometimes in the fall we think it's just football. I would argue it goes in all sports. I think it's really crucial for volleyball. Like in volleyball, if you're in a league, you only play 10 league games. You control 12 more matches. How you do during that year and you go into the tournament is going to have a lot to do. I always recommend the 2-year contract. I know, again, it's a little bit more work on the AD, but the 2-year contract gives you a chance to gauge your programs and make sure it's what's best. I know there's some long-time rivalries and so forth, but schools and enrollments and programs and matchups that maybe were true 20 years ago. We just live in a little bit of a different, geography and a little bit different structure nowadays in a lot of our areas. So you're right. There's a lot that goes into it. What's the most important? I'll leave that discussion for another day. But to say scheduling doesn't matter in the results, that's crazy.
Yeah, when you look at okay, I want to talk about the contract part.
Okay.
Contract, that's just pretty much a handshake agreement at this point, right?
I think so. Now there's a contract, but like again, it's like a lot of different things. Over the years, I've had people call me and say, "Hey Shayne, I know we've played forever in baseball. I don't think this is the best thing for us." I've done the same thing, and look, so like. I think the answer is yes. Now, there may be ADs out there that say absolutely not. If I tell you we're playing or whatever. I think it's about – it goes back to what's best for kids, what's best for programs. Hey, we need this, you need this. I think more times than not people are going to work together. I'm not saying some people – now, the timing of it, I'm not saying you should call someone on Thursday and tell them you're not playing on Saturday. Right. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about in in off-season, talk – coming up. Now, I will say football is done so much in advance because people are afraid of not getting games, and they are harder to get games, especially like as you get deeper into the year. I get all that. But again, I think if you at least have a pulse on your athletic program and how your boys' side's going to be, your girls' side's going to be or whatever, it can be done. And even if you get yourself in a couple bad contracts, you shouldn't have to be in there more than a year or two.
When it comes to coaches making their own schedule, because a lot of places have their coaches make their own schedule, how important is it to kind of have that conversation between the AD and coaches on, hey, you want to make your own schedule, but we still got to think about some of these other things as well? Because there is a lot of things to think about. Like if you want to go and play, let's say Coldwater, well, think about that, like, what's that gate going to be? Like, does that come into it at all? Or hey, okay, we're going to go to Coldwater this week. We got to be mindful of that in 2 weeks on our next road game because it's going to cost so much money to get there. Like, does that kind of factor into it at all? Like, because there are a lot of different, like, you have to have the bus driver, you have to have the quality of bus to get there, and just different things like that.
I think if I follow your line of thinking, which is really good, the communication has to come from those perspectives that I'm sharing, okay? So different personalities are different at every school. I assume the athletic director and the coach would be involved. Some schools might have a little bit more of superintendent presence, a high school principal presence. Everybody's a little bit different in terms of how they divvy up responsibility and so forth. But if again you're looking at an athletic director and a coach, you're looking at it from what's best for my kids, what's best for my team, my program, how might my parents respond, so forth. Maybe the AD's trying to do that, but also getting pressured from here of, hey, you have 5 home games this year. We need to make this, and this. The boosters are wanting this, and this. The more money the boosters make, the more they supplement. You see what I'm saying? So that conversation has to happen of, okay, I want to play this team. Okay, well, here's what's going to look like in busing. Here's what's going to look like in time, and then we're going to have to make a return trip. Are they going to play at home here? We're probably going to have to go back to them next year. And all of those things factor in. And I think the more you can have those conversations, the more the coach starts to realize the business side of it, and more the business side starts to realize, okay, here's where we think our program is. Here's what we think is best for our kids in terms of being as successful as we can be. Now, when you get all that business side aside, I think what happens is it comes down to what we're talking about here. The results matter. You know what I mean? A lot of times the difference between being 1-0 right now and 0-1 is who'd you play. That's just honest. Like, I watched some teams on film that lost that I thought did some nice things. I'm thinking, well, they weren't going to beat that team out of 20 tries, but man, I see some things I like if they were doing some of that. I'll give you an example if you think it's okay to just say, take Southeastern football. Did they win last year a game or two? I can't remember their non-league.
Yeah.
Okay. We started 1-0 the other night. I ran into some Southeastern people who were ecstatic this weekend about You thought we had a competitive game. They scheduled a game that we thought we'd be competitive in, and they went out. Get some individuals setting school records or competing for some. They start 1-0. You could tell these people felt real good about the experience. They got to go up and play. Sounded like it was a decent facility, and you could tell they felt good. And you and I know a lot of those Southeastern kids from following them in other sports, even coaching against them in other sports. There's some good athletes there that just needed to kind of find some confidence, and maybe that'll help them grow. Maybe they won't. I don't know what type of season they're going to have, but I know in that environment they had a positive experience. The family had a positive experience. So my take on that is that's just good scheduling. Those kids against a lot of other opponents around the area are going to start 0-1. You see where I'm going with that? Where I watched other kids go out and play pretty well in certain areas and lose by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So that's what we're talking about. We're never coming on here and saying Cupcake City or this or this. I've always felt like it's how are you in your league year in, year out? And so what do I need to do to offset that in the non-league? And then the better I get in the one area, the tougher I can get in the other. But if I'm already going year in, year out in football, if I'm going out and winning, if I'm going 1-6, 2-5 for like 5 straight years, well, my league's obviously already pushing me enough. I need my kids to have a little bit more of a positive experience. I always say we need to play someone that will let the play look like it's supposed to on field, so then that we can get better to figure out if we can do it against someone better. So, that's just a thought, and we can even go down roads in other sports as we go here too.
Yeah, and that's we're going to talk about a lot of the different sports throughout. We're going to talk 5 different sports tonight, and we're going to talk scheduling in each and every one of them. But especially with how this season has started, because we didn't have a whole lot of games so far this week, as I think we had anticipated there's going to be a few more in volleyball, but the original start date was Saturday, so a lot of people didn't
adjust.
Yeah,
or they couldn't adjust. They'd already scheduled.
Yeah, so with the schedule being able to start earlier, some did. So we have a few teams. I know there's a few that have gotten off to nice starts, but overall, we'll talk about that scheduling throughout the episode. And if you're wondering when we're going to talk about a different topic, if you want to know when we talk about golf, the timestamps below in the description will tell you when we talk about each topic. So right now, if you see me with my phone out and you're like, oh, why is this guy on his phone while doing this? It's because I'm keeping track of the time, because there's 8,000 other things we're doing at this point too. So I got a game story to finish here soon. We got to edit this, and then we got the coaches calling show tonight, and at some point I want to sleep a little bit because we got school in the morning. So so overall, if you want to know when we're going to talk about each topic, it's going to be in the timestamps. And usually when we put out the posts on social media, especially on Facebook, because you can do a little more typing on it, you're going to see the timestamps in general on there, at least what we're going to talk about as well. So let's go on to football right now, and let's stick to the scheduling a little bit on that, where it's just kind of, I guess you already talked about it a little bit. So kind of what did we learn in week 1?
Well, I think what we learned in week 1 is not to overreact. To keep the scheduling theme is you have to pay attention to realistically, how winnable was the game. That has to do with scheduling, right?
Yeah.
And you go in, and if it was a game that you probably weren't going to win, how do you think you played? Were you able to do some things? Like I watched film. I'll use another example, Paint Valley. I watched that film the other night. Valley was just bigger, faster, stronger. They dominated the scoreboard. I saw the score, Paint Valley person. I was like, go home, and I'm watching, the Valley takes opening kickoff back, and they've had, a defensive touchdown. They had some different things. But honestly, you start to unpack the film. I don't know the stats, but I assume Brendan Eisen threw for almost 200 yards. Ethan Burke had to have over 100 yards total offense. You see what I'm saying? So, there's some things there. If you're a Paint Valley person, you can hang your hat on. Valley was going to win the football game.
Yes.
They just were. But see how both teams can view that film separately. So what I would encourage people is what I learned is, you had some coin flip games, and those are the ones you hope you can win. Like we had a couple on our stream with the Unioto Jackson, and then we had Zane, Tracy, Logan, which we'll talk about. So You learn a lot more from those tighter matchups, but you have to understand what you're expecting to see going in and how it unpacks, so to speak, so that you can make the best, I don't know, just critique, moving forward.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think we saw some feel-good things in that first week. You talked about Southeastern starting with a win. Also, Green, who did not win a game last year, they went in triple overtime over Federal Hawking. I mean, that's a great way to start. Did you happen to see the highlight of the win?
I did not.
So they've also, it's a new stadium over at Green, and it is completely new. So they score, and then the lights start flashing, and so it was very.
So you don't think that matters? I mean, that's the point I'm making, is because you put your kids in that atmosphere. Both of those programs,
yes,
because both of those teams have struggled. So both of those programs get a chance to play in that environment and grow from it.
Yes. So and it's just an outstanding week one environment for Green. Now, I mean, they play Southeastern, so I don't know how many people would have guessed that was going to be a week two game where one of them was going to go to 2-0.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's exciting for those communities, and it's going to give. I'm sure Southeastern, there's going to be some really excited people over at Southeastern with a chance to maybe start 2-0.
And both of those teams and both of those conferences are probably still going to struggle a little bit, but the non-league success gives them a little chance to kind of start to move the program forward a little bit and see if they can't just get a little bit more competitive in the product. Maybe it motivates kids to stay in the program a little bit more. Maybe it motivates some kids that are on the fence to get involved in the program at both places. And then that's how they grow from that point. I think that's great.
Yeah, and the game that I think was maybe one of the craziest of the week was South Point kicks a 30-yard field goal in the closing seconds. I think there's still 2 seconds left when it went through to beat Eastern Pike to break their long regular season winning streak. Congratulations to everything that Eastern Pike football has done so far. It's a chance to. Now you start that winning streak over again as they go to Oak Hill this week. So a chance for them to kind of restart things. But that was a game where they get a stop with a little over 2 minutes left on a 2-point try and then go down and score too quickly. So where they go down and score too quickly, South Point's able to tie it. South Point gets a stop and then goes down and scores on that field goal, and that's a great turnaround for South Point. It's just different things like that where last year that was a really tight game, and then South Point able to get the win on the road because that game got moved to Piketon. Also, I think we learned how valuable it is to have turf at certain places because we saw different games get moved because of that insane rain that we had for about 3 weeks.
And if you haven't developed the ability either through a soccer program or in your kicking program in football, you don't make a 30-yard field goal to win a high school football game. So all of these different things go in and come into play. It's great discussion, and it's what makes sports really fun because sometimes the difference between winning and losing actually comes down to that ball being in the air, and is it good or is it not good?
Yes, and that's something we've talked about for a long time is the kicking game in football. So let's move over to some standout performances of the week because this is some of the things. I don't know, when I look at the names on this that I listed, I don't think we learned a single thing about these people because they just reiterated what we already know about them. So I'll actually start. Let's go to Julian Baker of Miami Trace. Last year against Waverly, he ran for 358 yards, I believe, in week one. So he took a slight step back. Now, this game wasn't as competitive as that game was. 19 carries, 280 yards, and 4 scores in the 48-14 win for Miami Trace over Waverly. And that was a game where, and this is something we're going to talk about, kind of load management a little bit. He didn't play in the fourth quarter, but he was playing some defense as well. He made a big tackle on I think it was a 4th and 15. And man, if you see Waverly this year, their skill guys are very skilled.
Getting older and more, they're really athletic.
Yeah, they got it to it was Hez Nelson, and Nelson makes a couple men miss, and it looks like he's going to break for the first down, and then Julian Baker comes out of nowhere and tackles him short of the first down. And that was still, I believe it was 20-7 at the time. And then the next play, Julian Baker broke a 60-yard touchdown. it was just like, that's what he can do. So Julian Baker, unreal. His line is still gigantic. I know they graduated Guthrie to Clemson, but man, with Barnard and that line, or Bernard, no, it is Barnard over there. So with that line, they are going to be tough. Now the quarterback situation is something that they're going to have to figure out as the season goes on. The Hatton kid, I thought, did a nice job for them, stepping in, and he only had to make a couple throws. But man, if you can run for 480 yards each week, it's going to be a really nice season.
They are. I'd watched Miami Trace last week of the preseason in person, and then was following your stuff there the other night. And obviously Baker covers up a lot of issues in your personnel, but the quarterback situation with some of the health of Phipps and so forth, and some of those the couple younger guys they're looking at there, and I know they even had another injury there at the against Unioto in that final preseason game. But you're right, if they can just get efficiency from their quarterback position, obviously Baker and that offensive line are going to do a lot of things. John, I think it's huge that they were able to put the game away and take the fourth quarter off, because again, I know some of these guys. Some guys we cover, they're all district, all Ohio level players, and then sometimes some of these guys are like all-time greats. And I think Baker, I don't think I'm stretching that to say he's more into that category. So I'm sure there's some numbers he's chasing, or that the coaching staff would like to help him get, or his teammates would like to help him get. But at the same time, as you said, here he is. He's into his senior year. He's playing defense too. They're going to play a tough schedule throughout. They're going to have goals of making the postseason. And the body just kind of takes that beating all the way through. And, when I see your stat sheet come back and I see 19 carries and only 3 quarters, I'll be honest, if I'm a Miami Trace fan, I don't hate that. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you take control of things and get them out of there. And then obviously, Waverly, I think Waverly has some talent. I think they're improved, but going back to scheduling, there's never been, in the last, 5 to 10 years of their schedule, there's been no let-up. So it's ready or not. Here's Julian Baker, tackle him or don't. But, and you come up on the wrong side of a scoreboard. But it's something that, Waverly will obviously learn from. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to have trouble getting that guy on the ground. But I just wanted to throw that in there because I know it's just week 1, but that'll all add up over the next 2.5 months, and that's something to follow.
Yes, I agree with that completely. Now, it's for Waverly, they do get to go back home, but they've got Zane, Trace, Unioto, Valley, and West in their first 5 games. That's a very tough first 5 weeks. They've got a couple winnable games after that, but if they've got to get one of these coming up, or else that's when the kind of just how you're feeling about yourselves just kind of goes away.
That's a great point too, because if you go out in the non-league and you can go 3-0, let's say you're in a conference, play 7 games. So let's say you're non-conference, you get to pick 3 opponents. You go 3-0. It takes a month of football to go under 500. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just feel better about what's going on. You hope you're healthy. That's the other thing too. You can go play some of these teams or whatever, and by the time you get to week 4 or 5, you don't even know if you're any good because you've already heard 4 or 5 starters on both sides of the ball.
Yes, and then they've got some really nice pieces too for Waverly. The Myers twins. I thought they threw the ball well, and it wasn't just Myers. It was Trey Perry broke loose. He had 2 touchdown catches in that game, and it's just they're a team that they're going to get somebody, but it's they've got to put some different pieces together. But it's a really tough first 5 weeks for them. And then let's move to one of the best. When you talk about all-time greats, let's stick to this one because Ligon is unbelievable. Now, his numbers are really good anyway, but when you see 14 carries, 170, I think it was 177 yards, he had a couple of big-time plays brought back on penalties. That's something that Chillicothe is definitely going to have to clean up, but they blocked well for him, and then if you block well at all, that dude is going to make people miss and is going to do some outstanding things. He had 3 touchdowns on the ground, And then he had a pick 6 as well. So, I mean, just an unbelievable player. But also, when we looked at load management, because he's going to play both sides of the ball, didn't take a whole lot of carries. And that's going to be a big thing to look at for him throughout the year.
Yeah, there's two things in my notes on Carpenter this week. One, let me make a coaching point. When you win the game, now if you'd have lost by a point, maybe people feel differently about this. But when you win the game, from a coaching standpoint, the penalties can almost be a positive in week one. And I know it sounds stupid, right? But go with me here. What happens is you win the game, everyone's happy, you're 1-0, you beat a really good team. Let's face it, Circleville's going to win some football games this year, right? So, like, you come back to the film room, and coach immediately can get their attention on, hey, guys, whoa, listen, we've done this, and this. If we don't clean this up, it's going to get us beat. And it gives you, when you come out and you play near perfect in week one, that's good. Mm-hmm. But, like, sometimes it really leads to a point of, like, 2 months from now, they always say, do you peak too early? I never really bought into that, but I do think there's a point where you start to get to your ceiling, and it's one of those where, okay, it's hard enough to maintain it. Where are we really going to get better? Where are the little things? This is an obvious area where Chillicothe can go to work, and, man, I couldn't agree more. The 14 carries, that's something. And obviously he had more carries, I assume statistically, if they had things called back. Let's say it was 20 carries or whatever. Yeah, that's not bad in week one.
No, it's really, really nice for them because their schedule does not get any easier. We'll talk about that game coming up in a little bit with their week 2, which is going to be our streaming game of the week there. But then let's go to our second streaming game from this past weekend. You can find it in our archives. Bryce Johnson, Zane Trace. This is where the load management's going to kind of come into it. He had 22 carries, 220 yards, 5 touchdowns, which ties his own school record in a game, in a 46-27 win over Logan Elm. If you watch that game was all over the place because it was 27-0, then 27-all, and then Zane Trace wins the fourth quarter 19-0 to win 46-27. But he's playing a whole lot of football.
It's one of the real hidden gems of week one. Like, because people probably doing some score checks or whatever, they all of a sudden see 27-0 early second quarter, and they're like, well, that game's over or whatever. I mean, if we're being honest, we're sitting there on the air, and on one break, we're thinking, daggone, I wasn't expecting this. We're going to end up in a running clock later. And then all of a sudden they score, okay. And then back before the half, they scored like with 3 seconds to go. And you're like, well, wait a minute, they get the ball. Mm-hmm. I made the comment once it was 27-20. I said it felt like almost an hour and a half of real time since Zane Tracy had run a play. And then, so you don't expect 27-0 to be 27-27 going into the fourth quarter. Now Johnson breaks loose for a touchdown on the very first play of the fourth quarter. But let me play negative Nancy here for a second on the other side. Obviously, this kid's unreal. Like, if you haven't watched him play football on both sides of the ball, he's incredible. And he'd be the first to tell you he's got an awesome offensive line and some guys up there going to work for him. But their inability to put them away, you could argue, could have turned this into more of about, like at halftime, I think he had 10 or 11 carries, 150 yards. He had like 3 of those touchdowns. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, this could have been a whole other load management type of thing. Now, there's a lot of character of you blow the lead. First of all, hats off to Logan Elm for not quitting and coming back all the way to 27-all. But then hats off to Zane Trace because they were shell-shocked. You could see it in their body language, in their they converted a couple third down pass plays to earn Stouffer and Johnson more opportunities to run it.
Stouffer was really good.
He was, well. but I'm telling you, the young quarterback. I don't have it in front of me. It's terrible. Payne.
Yes.
Payne to Hartley. Yeah. Okay. There's a couple third down conversions. If they don't make them, they're going to have to punt the ball. So a couple of those third down plays allows them to come back and get a new set of downs and keep it going. But Logan Elm is they're legitimate. They competed hard, and obviously there's a gut check there, and Zane Trace passed it. But on the topic of load management, I think that's a fair point to make. That was a fourth quarter that could catch up with a Zane Trace team here over the next month. That's not real deep.
Right, and they've got a tough one where they got to go to Waverly this week, just we'll talk about that a hair later, but it's just overall, it's still a really good win for St. Trace, but that load management thing is something that we're going to have to look at throughout the season as well. So let's talk about just some of the different guys that kind of impacted games in a big way this week. Hudson Lovett from McLean. That kid can flat out play. The quarterback, he's a junior. He had a really nice year last year, and that takes them to a 37-8 win over Adina to start their year.
Been talking about that group at McLean for a couple years in our spring coverage and so forth. They've been pretty high on them, and now what you're seeing is the weight room year 2, year 3, year 4 as they come out of junior high into high school. Now they're getting into the back end of their high school career. Terrific athletes, should have a big year.
Owen Tracy, Griffin Hudson, Meigs with a really nice road win after waiting through the weather. And Carson Francis also waited through the weather for that over Eastern Reedsville in a pretty big rivalry matchup there.
Yeah, shout out Carson Francis for putting in even the extra hours there after our old bodies started back home, right? But I was following Carson there, and we know those names from some different sports or so forth. And we always say you want your best players to make big time plays when it's required, and boy did they.
Yes, Bronx Carpenter from Symmes Valley went ballistic in their win over Chesapeake, and just I don't have the stats, but like his stats by the end of this year are going to be.
Well, you and I had way too much fun with that conference last year and all the points they score anyway.
Yeah, so the big thing for Symmes Valley is going to be that defense that they're going to get tested this week. We'll talk about that game a little bit as well. And then our first streaming game, I thought these two seniors really stepped up in a big way for Unioto. Their underclassmen are phenomenal. But Yusuf Wilson, in his return, he had 2 touchdowns, including the Perfection One collision of the week, which we did already put out. Like, we don't even have to like clip this, thankfully, because I'm not very good at that. Like, I've discovered that recently too. I'm not great at clipping the stuff, but that was already clipped for us because our collision of the week was that huge sack he had. Times like it was, you could tell where Jackson was a little young on that, or inexperienced in certain positions, because they huddled long and then they got out and they weren't really in a big hurry, and then the play you could just see it set up. The line shifts to the left. Yusuf Wilson comes from the outside untouched and just with a huge hit, and then really a super heady play because he sees the ball is loose, and instead of just grabbing it, he stands up and grabs the ball, and then he goes 51 yards untouched for a touchdown. And it was just the mindfulness to wait to pick the ball up was so impressive.
Yeah, I would have called myself out here. You and I haven't had. I mean, our 4-day stretch has been so crazy here, and then we went separate way Friday night. Yeah. We haven't had a lot of time to talk about the Unioto Jackson game, so I'm going to call myself out here, and I want to throw this out and see if you and I are on the same page with this game. I can't tell you how impressed I am with Unioto. Like, when I was trying to break this game down, remember on here last week, I said, okay, I think Jackson will be a little bit better up front. Well, I watched the game. I thought they were a little bit better up front. Keep in mind, they ran for 250 yards.
Right.
Wilson, I loved his workman-like performance of 20-some carries. He only had about 60 yards to show for it. Obviously, had the big-time defensive play. Yeah. But I thought the 22 carries were key because that tells you you're possessing the football. Yeah. And he was giving him those tough inside yards. But I thought Unioto was way better at skill going in. Yeah, and after the game, I think they're way better at skill. You know what I mean? Just phenomenal skill.
Levi Beam did so many things in that game. That was the other one I wanted to talk about. He had the fake punt, which was a great read. And, it was the tale of 2 fake punts in the game. Now, they didn't get anything out of the possession. But
no, but still. That was a big time and score issue too there.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Beam had what, 2 or 3 third down conversions on some big pass plays from Coy. Harsha was obviously unique as we thought he would be, but Unioto, how about their depth of skill is insane. Yeah. Like it's just like they have a line of them. Like, okay, your turn. You know what I mean? But
because it was Lakin Langoff, Carter Elliott, Riker Larson, all caught passes. Blake Braden played a good bit, and
he was targeted some. Not to mention probably missing. I don't think Wilson was ever used out of the backfield.
No, but Henry Villette.
bringing some.
Had a couple of big plays. And then Isaac Coy, I thought he had the one pass where I think it was probably miscommunication on the interception. I thought he played well because he did a good job. The couple times that he was even rushed, he was able to get outside the pocket and just get it thrown away with it thrown out of danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you ask me what I learned from week one, we talk. I think experience matters. You know what I mean? Like especially early in the year. The part that got me was how far ahead Unioto was situationally, and I think a lot of that had to do with experience. You're talking about a 7-7 football game. Kind of what I ended up hearing through some other media things I listened to was there was a mistake on the fake punt. I don't know that it was supposed to be fake. They didn't execute. And then the defense almost steps up. Unioto gets it in on the 4th and 1. And then obviously the play you highlight with Wilson. So really the 14-point game was decided inside about a 5-minute span.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, it was a pretty competitive football game. But I just couldn't believe just situationally how much Unioto was ready for the moment. I was thoroughly impressed. And again, that there's a lot to be excited for. We'll see if they get the week 2 hangover, but there's a lot to be excited about in that football program.
Yeah, it was a big-time week for them as well. So that actually kind of works out going into our next area, which was going to be – I just kind of had, it's too early to panic. And I think we can start with Jackson. I think it's too early to panic on Jackson. Now, their schedule is very impressive because you have that Unioto. Later on, you've got Wheelersburg, Ironton, and then you've got Miami, Tracy, Chillicothe. That's 5 really tough games. On top of it's the best McLean's been in quite a number of years. Courthouse is never easy to play against. Hillsborough is always tough. So those are 3 other league games. You got a rival with Gallia Academy, and then Western Brown has been traditionally strong over the last decade or so.
I think everything you said is true there. It goes back to scheduling, right? You have to be willing to evaluate your team. Remember, I did a segment last week on a lot of the volleyball kids that graduated. Mm-hmm. Jackson football fits that perfectly, where ready or not, here it is, because you have to be willing to evaluate. That Jackson football team is still really good.
Yes.
I could go create a schedule for them in the non-league where they just fought a bet and go 5-0. But that's not who they are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden you lose Unioto. Like you said, now Ironton, Wheelersburg.
Yeah.
And not to mention in your league, we have 2 guys we just highlighted that are 2 of the best running backs that our area has seen in the last 20 years. So it's tough. They're going to grow. They take a lot of pride in what the front of their uniform says, and they'll be fine. But record wise, in the eyes of some, will they be fine? I can't promise you that.
Yeah, I think they've got some pieces that they're going to be able to win a lot of games, and they're going to get that communication piece down on the fake punt.
Yeah.
Some different things Crabtree's just going to get better the more reps he gets at quarterback.
Well, like on the beam fake punt, I'm not so sure they didn't have 10 men on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Little things like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So it's those things that they'll tighten up. They're too well coached to not tighten up, and then. As you said, they still ran for 250 yards on a really good defensive team in Unioto. So I think you're going to see them maybe hang their hat on that a little bit more. If they get ahead of you, I think it's going to be really tough to come back on because of what they can do running the ball. I like those young running backs that they had as well. I thought they flew around a good bit defensively. I think there's a lot of positives for them. So, but that schedule is going to be tough. So I think it's not time to worry yet. And another team that I don't think it's time to worry yet, but it's coming close to must-win time already, and it's a team that's super excited for their season. It's Huntington.
Here's a great example. I like the Huntington team. I do. I think a lot of those athletes there at Huntington are really, really good, and you go on the road there and you play a really good program year in, year out that's really good, and you come up just a point short. And now you're staring at a schedule here in the next 3 weeks that's not easy, and that's okay. That's what I say. Don't get me wrong. That's okay in terms of what you're trying to do. It's just when I want people to understand what they're critiquing, because when I think of Huntington, somewhere there early into 2000s, the Mark Gray group might have went 7-3. Other than that, you probably could go all the way back to early 90s. I mean, probably the most talented football teams in my lifetime I've seen would probably be like the Scott Keller, Chad Lytle groups back in the early 90s. in the 80s, I know they shared a title. I was a little too young to know. That had been like the Todd Black time period, I think. But like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, here we are this many years later, and you've got a chance to have one of the better teams you've had in quite some time. Now, will the record show it by year's end? I think it still will. But understand that you've got some tough tests coming up here in the next month.
Yeah, it's you've got Burn Union coming into the township. You got 3 straight games. Well, this is an older schedule on this site. They hadn't updated the way the SVC is doing it yet. But you've got Burn Union coming in this week. You've got Portsmouth West, and then you've got Zane Trace.
That'll be our game week 4.
Yeah, that'll be our game week 4. That is a really tough first 4 games of the season. And if you are hoping to get a home playoff game, you got to get at least 1, maybe 2 of those games. But Burn Union is no joke. Portsmouth West is an outstanding program. I think they do a really good job, and they're loaded with seniors. And then that Zane Trace team we're both really high on.
No, there's no question about it. And that's why I say I think Huntington will be just fine in terms of matching up week in, week out. It's just how will they handle being 0-1, come in. I think this is a really, really big week for them, and trying to get one. I would not want to be 0-2 with the West game coming and then Zane Trace waiting on deck. So it'll be a nice test for them to see how they rebound. Obviously, very, very talented group. Played a good week 1 game, just came up a point short.
Yeah, that's a Burn Union team that they, on Fantastic 50, they're projected to win against. But then it gets really tough because then you also have at Piketon in week 5, who's, was very impressive in their week 1 win as well. Yeah. So, just should be still a really good season for Jackson and Huntington, but it's kind of...
Schindler is the running back I couldn't think of there for Jackson there, and I had a real nice game. And then going back to Huntington, again, experience with Hurst there at quarterback. They got behind the other night, and no panic there. I think they'll do the same thing this week. You start 0-1, no panic this week. Regroup, come back, as you said, favored to win here in week 2. Get that record evened up right away. Yeah,
it should still be a really fun night in the township on Friday. So let's move over to our last football topic of the week. It's going to be week 2. So let's start with our streaming game of the week, which is going to be Wheelersburg at Chillicothe. Now, one of the things I did want to comment on was Marshae McKinley. Did you see that catch he had?
I did not.
Whew. It was a diving one-handed catch late in the game, got him to the running clock against Circleville. That freshman, that play alone, on top of some of the other stuff he was able to do, kind of showed why he's one of the ones getting some big-time looks, because, man, he can really play. And if they can get that connection set, that's going to be a really tough team. But this is a Wheelersburg team. They win 6-3-0 in week 1 over Portsmouth. Portsmouth is going to go through some growing pains, but I think they've got the right coach in that situation to kind of help rebuild things there. But for Wheelersburg, get to the state championship game last year, unbeaten going to it. They graduated a ton of guys, and their secondary is kind of beat up. But where they're still going to excel is in the run-stop game. That's where this matchup, to me, is going to be so much fun to watch, is that big offensive line for Chillicothe. Can they make enough holes to where Ligon can kind of find those holes, and it takes him get to the second level until he gets hit? If he's hit on the first level, it's going to make it harder for him to be what he does. He's still going to be able to do some really outstanding things, but if he gets to that second level, that's when he is unbelievable.
I agree with you. I think what happens in games like this is it's the old thing. It's so near impossible to stop a guy like that. You're trying to contain him, but if you're not careful, you throw so much attention there. Look for the passing game. And again, when you talk about protection in today's football, it doesn't always have to be, drop back and throw it all the way downfield, right? When you were talking about McKinley, so got their Pleasant and Williams in there as well for Chillicothe. Are they able to get the ball in space to some guys? I think there's some plays to be made for those guys as well, because as well as I do in the scouting report, a lot of eyeballs on Carte Ligon. you're going to have open opportunities throughout the night. Each of those guys I just named are probably going to have 2 or 3 chances throughout the night to make a big play. And if they're able to, it could be a game changer.
Yeah, that's going to be, man, if they can get those out and connect and take advantage of that possibly susceptible back end of of Wheelersburg at this point. But man, Wheelersburg, Jack Dorr at the quarterback position, they seemingly always kind of reload, but this is a really tough early season matchup for a team with not a lot of experience, still a lot of talent, but not a lot of experience.
Yeah, don't forget about the other side of the ball in the trenches too,
yes.
because Wheelersburg like to possess the football too. And Chillicothe's defensive front make sure that they're not getting beat up in the time of possession, which hurts not giving more opportunities to those skill kids on the other side. Yeah,
and that's going to be our streaming game on Friday night, so make sure you're tuning in. All of our streams and everything we do here is brought to you by Holzer Health System, and we've got a whole lot of sponsors that make sure that you get to see all of the action here. Now, one of the things I kind of wanted to bring up, we'll be running, there's a good bit of commercials because we do have the sponsors. You will never miss a second of the action on any of our streams because we will get you back in time. If we've got to cut a commercial, we'll cut a commercial. And, we've got them all kind of timed out to where that should never happen. But just so you know, when the commercial comes on, once they're done, you're going to see the action coming back on all of our streams. And once again, if you're out at a game on Friday night, you want to check in on that Wheelersburg and Chillicothe game, make sure you tune in to our YouTube, which you're watching this on our YouTube. Subscribe. That way you don't miss any of the action, any of the interviews, any of the podcast shows. I know Brock's going to have a new show, or kind of season 2 of Bad Company, kind of revamped a little bit, coming up here in the next few weeks. And, the Coach's Call-In show, you don't miss any of that. You don't miss any of the shorts as well, which will, at this point, we're putting together some highlight pieces to go along there. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that as well.
No question. It's a lot that goes into the planning of it, and we appreciate those sponsors. But obviously, we know you tune in to see the game.
Yes, and that's what we appreciate each and every one of you for. So another big game in week 2 will be Athens at Unioto. You kind of mentioned for Unioto, like they come out, a lot of momentum kind of building off of that Jackson game, but will they take their foot off the gas? This could be a trap game, even though this is a Athens team that went 9-2 a year ago, started off 1-0 this season. Is an outstanding program going back to the Joe Burrow years and since.
It's an interesting matchup because, again, I think Unioto is the better team. I think we watched this Athens team last year. We had a chance to go down there and stream, and boy, did they pass the eye test. They had a lot of older talent, hit hard by graduation. I think this would have been a unique matchup a year ago. I'll be anxious to see how Athens matches up athletically. Thomas and Chapman, some kids that are there, but it'd just be interesting to see, particularly up front in the depth. Seemed like to me Athens' roster maybe wasn't quite as deep. Certainly there's no way it's as deep as it was a year ago, but that's a program too. Sometimes you have guys waiting their turn. That'll be anxious to see.
Yeah, this is an Athens program that has started off 9-0 2 straight years. So credit to them also for kind of upping that schedule in the non-league as well. So that always makes for fun things for us to talk about.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, this was a schedule flip where a bunch of groups got together and said, hey, let's have Vinton County Paint Valley play and Athens Unioto. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So that's one of the things we're kind of going back to that handshake agreement on the contracts of like, hey, if it doesn't go completely the way we think, or if maybe some different things happen with our program, hey, we may need to get out of this early. And I thought those ADs all did a really good job of getting together and making these games a little more,
And again, I don't want to speak because I don't know all the details on that, but what I do know is just from a fan, like if I look at that, I could be like, okay, that's good for them, good for them, good for them. I don't know if that's that good for Athens. So credit to Athens for stepping up and saying, yeah, we'll do that.
Yes, I agree with that completely. So, and then maybe a game that I think could be really fun. It was 56-42 last year at Meigs. Symmes Valley will host Meigs. Symmes Valley's got they only gave up 13 points in week 1. They scored 55. That's a team. This game, I'm so interested in this game. Austin Hannah's going to be there to watch it for us, to cover this game. Man, this game has all the makings of just maybe the most fun game of the week.
It does. Listen, we talk about I know we joke a lot about points and defense. High school defense is hard to play at the small schools. In all seriousness, we touched on this a little bit last week. It is so hard defensively to get the physicality at the small school where 11 guys can go out there and make tackles and make physicality plays. Now, with that said, what you can do is if you have good schemes and you have some different things, you can get a lot of these incredible athletes out in space, and it's going to equal a lot of touchdowns. It's going to equal a lot of points. So you're right. It makes for fun, entertaining games. But I think it really will come down to which team can just tackle a little bit better and contain the other team's offense.
Yeah, last year, just looking at Symmes Valley, 35, 56, 55, 45, a 29-12 win. So their defense showed up in that one. 66, then they lost 40-6 to Eastern Pike. Then they just go out and they 47. They win the next week, 63-47. Then they lose 38-36, which that was a game we talked about last year. That was the South Gallia game. We're like, hey, we can get a bunch of teams into the playoffs if South Gallia wins, and that kind of it swung it that way. But they won a playoff game, so they win, scoring 41 last year. They gave up 48 in their playoff loss last year at Hillsdale. But this is a team that can flat out score. It's just getting stops on the defensive side is where it's going to come down to. So Bronx Carpenter, we talked about him a little bit earlier, can sling it. He can make so many different plays happen. He's got a lot of guys, a lot of good skill guys as well. Can their defense get enough stops? How will Owen Tracy, Griffin, Hudson, and the Marauders, how will they kind of carry over into week 2? This is going to all the makings of it.
What's the division breakdowns on those teams? You know that? I don't mean put you on the spot, but I don't have those memorized as well this early in the year where it changes some.
Symmes Valley is 7.
Okay.
And Meigs is 5.
Okay, so right there, Symmes Valley an opportunity to gain some points with just playing the bigger school, good or bad.
Yeah.
And then Meigs still has an opportunity. I know it's a smaller school, but as you said, Symmes Valley is going to win a lot of football games. So I think there's some computer points involved in this one as well.
Yeah, and for Meigs, they are in Region 19, which is it's not fun.
But what again, it's your stage of your program. What you're trying to do is just, can we get in? Can we compete? Can we play meaningful football into week 8, 9, 10 and maybe get in? That's what you're trying to build toward, and this is a big step.
Yeah, for Meigs going on the road there, and then you've got Liberty Union, Vinton County, River Valley. Those are all winnable games before they would go to Nelsonville in week 6. So I know they were excited early in the 7-on-7 season. Or Carson Francis saw them and talked to them about how they were looking to build because they started off slow last year. They get to 5-5. Now they're building off of that, and that's kind of how you get the program kind of back.
Yeah, that's kind of my final football thought is, again, with the scheduling talk we've made, it's all about where is your program at? Where's your program trying to get? For some people, that's, hey, we've been undefeated, now we're trying to be better in the postseason. Some people, we've been 0-10, we're just trying to win a game. Other people are, hey, we've been flirting in that 3-win to 5-win. We're trying to get up to that 7-win to see if we can become a little bit more of a playoff contender.
Yeah, so they were 5-5 the last 2 seasons, and they want to try to swing that into getting over 500 and possibly getting into the playoffs this year with a really nice group of upperclassmen as well. Cleveland does a nice job at the quarterback position. So look for that one. Some highlights from that game. That one's going to be a really fun one. Looking forward to our Austin Hannah being there for that. So any other final thoughts on?
Great first week. I think football's always takes 2 or 3 weeks to start to trust what you see.
Yes, so looking forward to seeing what, if we can trust what we saw in week 2 as well. So let's move forward to volleyball. And let's start with our streaming game that we had last week, which was obviously, man, this Gallia Academy team is phenomenal. 24-1 last year. They won their first 24 matches. They've really gone out and stepped up their non-conference schedule. And kudos to Fairland on that, because Fairland actually moved their league game, their first league game with Gallia Academy. They moved it forward. So this was originally supposed to be the opener, but it made it to where Fairland, or that Gallia Academy, could play one of those really good non-conference teams on what would normally be a conference night. So Fairland went with them, moved it forward. Now maybe they kind of knew what was going to happen in the match regardless, but that made it to where Gallia now, which is a game we're going to talk about here in a few minutes too, was able to pick up a really key non-conference matchup as well. But this is a really good way to start the season. You knew when they didn't graduate anyone from a 24-1 team that they were going to be really talented as well. But when you throw in Piper Pugh, this team has so many weapons for the Gallia Academy.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of holes here. You know, as you said, with what they have coming back, we've highlighted on here before with Clark at center and all the hitters they have. But there's a couple domino effects that take place here with Pugh coming in, and then, you know, complementing with Barnes in the strong side. What it also does with Saunders and Clark in the middle, Abby Clark, the middle hitter, is it allows Frazier to go over to the weak side or the right side, whatever a lot of people want to call it. But for people that aren't real sure in volleyball, what that means is she's over there putting up the block against the other team's strong side hitter. That's not normal. You know what I'm saying? That's not normal. That's not the depth of this team. You know, they even are able to get some solid passing with Bennett and Petrie, but then, like, I liked how they brought Rice off the bench the other day. She's a little bit of a spark plug. She did some serving at times for them last year, and you're going to need some hot servers throughout the year to like when you start to get into a match with a Newark Catholic and Bloom-Carroll. If you're going to be successful, at some point you're going to have to get a couple servers hot at the line. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what's so important. I also think even like when you look at the year each has had a year ago, she's still going to be a depth piece. Like they went through injury last year. They went through. So there's a lot of things you just keep going down and you're like, well, where's the weakness? The only weakness I can really come up off of, and it's not even really a weakness, it's just something that's caught up with them in the past, is will their serve receive and all 6 rotations hold up when the competition gets to its absolute highest? And if it does, they're gonna have a chance to play with anybody. Yeah. They are. They're that good. They're that complete.
Yeah, you've got the length at the net that can, you know, make things a little bit easier for the passers, you know, when they're, you know, getting attacked. But then you have that length of the net that can both really play. And then you've got those just super dynamic athletes coming from that left side, and man, they've got a lot to be excited about, because Grayson Clark is one of the best setters in our area ever.
Imagine too, on a basketball team. I used the analogy last week. If you're going out trying to guard 5 kids that average 10 a game, and all of them are capable of going for 20 on any given night, Pugh and Barnes are going to always have a comfortable attack, because you're not going to be able to cheat the middle out there very many times, because the middle can just kill you. Like the quick action, the way Abby Clark and Riley Saunders go and get on top of Grayson Clark sometimes there in the middle, like it just holds the middle block, and then one-on-one on the outside, the way Barnes and Pugh are able to create the angle on the cross-court shot. It's just it's good. But again, Grayson Clark gives you, being so good, she gives you a little bit of room for error on the pass, but you have to at least pass good enough to be able to get into all of that action.
Yeah, when they can get into their action, that's when they're extremely dangerous, because you've got all kinds of options. And if you do happen to make a play, it's usually going to have to be free balled back, because you're going to have a hard time getting into your action because of what those hitters are able to do, and that's what makes them so difficult to stop. For Unioto, I saw some nice pieces. There was times where Gallia got on big runs, but I thought Unioto reacted well, and I thought that they competed well on the night.
I like how Unioto responded in the second set. You know, they were shell-shocked a little bit. And again, when you go to Gallia Academy there, like some of their pregame, it's a pretty cool atmosphere. And the home team started fast, and Unioto was kind of knocked back. And I like how they responded in the second set. I think they played the 21-17 before they went on to lose a little bit more of a competitive set. Unioto's going to be fine. I like some of the things they were starting to get out of Grubbs. That was a player I was watching. I liked how aggressive she was swinging on the outside. As I said, you're not always going to look across the net and see Aubrey Frazier there, so that'll ease up a little bit at times. They got to get a little bit more out of Dennis, but a lot of their entire attacks just came on what you said. The Gallia Academy serving and their attacks were so tough that it was just they really attacked Batson in her defensive position. So a lot of times she was taking the first ball so much that they were never really in any rhythm or any going to come back at Gallia Academy. I'm anxious to see Unioto over the next week or so to see how they settle in. As they settle into some consistency of their rotation, that's going to help them just a little bit. Start to find a couple tough serves. Start to find a little serve-receive cleanup, and if they do that, there's weapons there, and they're experienced enough at setter that I think she'll figure out a way to get some of those hitters going.
Yeah, it's just a tough way to start your season, and it doesn't get a whole lot easier for them. We'll talk about.
Yeah, but Anderson and Watson and Puckett, those girls have varsity experience.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine. They just got to find their rotation, find their roles, and We'll see what it looks like against different opponents as they move forward.
Well, then that's important that you mentioned that because they're experienced, but it's in new roles.
Fair point.
In different roles that maybe they weren't in.
A couple of them.
Yeah.
Even the ones in the same roles, the responsibility of the production we need out of you increases.
Yes. Yeah. So, and they've got some outstanding pieces, and really look forward to seeing how they continue to build and grow throughout the season because we're going to have them a lot early in the season. So, but before we get to that, let's go with a little bit of our streaming preview for the week. We will have several games on live stream this week, so we'll have 3 games. Be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So if you want to watch some high-quality volleyball, this is going to be a great chance to do so. On Tuesday, we've got Miami Trace at Waverly. What are some of the key things that you want to learn from this matchup?
With Miami Trace, I know how good Yeasel and Guess and that combination is going to be. What I can't wait to see is where does Miami Trace go after that for their offense? You know, I like how solid. I think their passing game should go with Ackley. Is it going to come from Robinette? Is it going to come from Ella Butts? Whatever it might be. You know, if you think about what made them so good last year, they had the 2 Laurens opposite of each other, but now you have Lauren Guess. What happens in rotations 4, 5, 6 in terms of the offensive attack? Mm-hmm. Can you maintain that? Then on the Waverly side, obviously Sydney Johnson, you know, graduating last year, phenomenal. I mean, unbelievable stat sheet stuffer galore. But as we said last week on the preview, I'm just anxious to see how this Waverly group, a year older now, responds. You just said it with Unioto. Sometimes you're experienced. Sometimes you're even experienced in the same role. Mm-hmm. But now we need more out of you.
If more production.
Maybe 2.5 kills per set was okay last year because we had Sydney to go to. Now we need 4 out of you, or we need 3.5 out of you, or whatever it may be. So with Gillett and Knight for sure, but there's some kids there that are going to have to step up. We talked about Ramsey last week on the show, but there's some other kids there. Schrader has a lot of varsity experience, so I'm anxious to see what does Waverly look like in terms of some of these kids taking the next step and saying, okay, now I've arrived, now I can be a go-to.
Yeah, so that's what's going to make this one a really fun matchup to watch. That's a beautiful facility down at Waverly. And remember, that's not at the downtown gym. That one's going to be played up on the hill at the high school, which is I think we talked about it, probably a top 5 gym in the area. I don't know if we've talked about how great Gallia Academy's gym is. Like,
It's really,
it's a phenomenal place to watch a game and a great place to call a game from, and that's why one of the reasons we're going back on Thursday. Bloom-Carroll at Gallia Academy on Thursday. 24-1 last year against the state runner-up. It's a great regular season matchup. Can you talk about a little bit of why we added this game?
Well, as a late addition, I don't want to speak for you. We almost felt obligated to because let's face it, for our southeast district, Gallia Academy is not the shortest drive on a Thursday night, right? So we almost felt obligated to. Wait a minute, man. We've got this opportunity. We've been wanting to kind of include Bloom-Carroll a little bit more, with all the success we've had with our relationships with a Logan Elm and a Circleville volleyball and so forth. So we've been wanting to try to do this. It just makes a lot of sense. And what a great test for both teams because the expectation of Bloom-Carroll. It's again like we talked with the Jackson football the other night. Like no one cares who you graduated. You're Bloom-Carroll. So it should. I can't wait to get down there and do it again. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And what's nice for a lot of people is, if they're out at their games, they can come back and watch it. Or if you're just home and you're like, oh my goodness, I'd love to see that, but I can't drive all the way down there.
Right.
Well, just sit back on your couch and throw your feet up and let's watch some volleyball.
Yeah, it should be an outstanding match. Coach McFerrin and Coach Webb both do an outstanding job with their programs. You're going to hear from Coach Webb on the Hayesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. We're going to talk to her.
We had both those coaches back at the root, too.
Yes.
So you can go back and listen to where they were about a month ago in their development.
Yeah, and that one's time-stamped as well. We don't normally time-stamp our live streams like that, but that one's time-stamped on when those coaches' interviews are on as well. So we look forward to that. And then our final volleyball live stream of the week will be the Kingston National Bank SVC Game of the Week, which will be Chillicothe at Unioto on Saturday night. What do these teams both need kind of before league play starts?
Well, I've talked about Unioto, so I won't be too repetitive there, although by the time they get there, I think that'll be their third match. I think it is, maybe fourth. They have South Webster this week. Is the Logan L match
I think
this week too?
Week as well.
So that might be. So we may know a lot more by the time we get there. That'll be anxious. On the Chillicothe side, it's almost identical to the Miami Trace thing I was talking about. And it's funny because Miami Trace and Chillicothe are going to be the two to kind of duke it out there in the FAC. You know how good Hammond is there at the net. Hopefully she's okay. I know she got hurt there early on. It sounds like she dodged a bullet. But I'm anxious to see what their offensive attack looks like in those back three rotations the same way. I think it's almost an identical question I have for Miami Trace. I like Whitty and I like some of the athletes that they have around there, but what can they do to make sure? Because if you're going to play championship level volleyball, I can't tell you how much I see teams sometimes separate themselves because they get a certain kid in the back row and they don't have the ability to go. You'll still win some matches, but you're going to have trouble playing at a championship level, so that'll be really important.
Yeah, that one will be a big-time matchup in the area as well, because those two, when they meet up,
just always fun.
Yeah,
I like how they put it. I think it's a Saturday night game even, right? So I even like how they've done that a little bit. Should help.
Yeah, so that'll help a good bit as well. So let's kind of put a wrap on the first week. What else did you see from around the area, and what do you kind of hope that we see kind of a week from now as well?
Well, Adina South Webster, two elite programs that were kind of reloading a little bit. Adina with straight set win there. That jumped out at me a little bit. I thought it was impressive. And clear back in the opening, Trimble going into Huntington and winning. I think we talked about TVC hockey and volleyball growing and how good we thought Eastern Meigs could be. I think that's a big deal. Trimble coming in and beating an SVC opponent and doing so 2-0. 2-0 on a shorter three-set match on the weekend there. And, just not a lot. As I look down through, those are probably some of my key notes. The Circleville 3, London 2, that five-set thriller, that's kind of good stuff. But and then Alexander falling in the opener and 5 to Philo. Kind of, again, I think that's where they could go through just some growing pains just a little bit. But as we get into more and more, we'll have more actual detailed conversation on teams. But those are some of the scores that jumped out at me.
The Pistols for North Adams still really good. It's just it was finding the new setter there because it's been that's one of my favorite like running things of the area is like they just go 4 years of like the same setter and then they have just an absurd amount of assists throughout their career at North Adams because it's a program that does really well. But those pistols are going to make that life a little bit easier for the new setter for them as well. So,
no question.
Don't be surprised if they're at the top of the shack once again, as they typically are. So we got some big matches coming up this week. So let's talk about the scheduling piece here. How difficult do you want your non-conference schedule to be?
Well, I've always been pretty consistent on this. I think depending on where I feel like I stack up in my league, I kind of vary it off of that a little bit. I think that, if I'm a team that is going to year after year go 9-5, 10-4, 11-3, then I'm probably going to start to up it a little bit because I'm trying to take that next step, right? If I'm 13-1, 14-0, I'm certainly trying to take the next step. So the non-conference there is going to ramp up even more. But if I'm a team that year after year after year is struggling to get out of the basement, 2-12, 3-3, I've got to get my kids in a position to just experience some success. That's probably where I'm going to ease up on a little bit, and I'm going to try to give my kids and my fan base and just everybody a chance just to feel winning. Yes. You know what I mean? Like learn winning. And then everything in between. So I really, to me, the non-conference schedule in terms of what I want probably depends on year after year about where I'm at, and then knowing, as I said back in the beginning, those 2-year contracts, knowing about what I think, okay, over the next couple of years, this is kind of what I want to play, and then going off of that.
And then let's look at weekends. A lot of people play on the weekends. If you're not playing in a weekend tournament, so weekend tournaments are typically best of 3. If you're just playing do you want to play a best of 3 or best of 5?
I don't know if that bothers me too much because, kids play so much volleyball now throughout. I think sometimes the advantage of the 3, you could still put you in a sense of urgency. Sometimes you might get yourself more in an elimination situation, especially if you're pretty good. I don't know if that bothers me too much. I think the reason for the weekend is you get more matches in, you get more different opponents, more the different styles that you play against. And I think also sometimes those tournaments allow teams to travel and get the elite competition all in one. You'll see that a lot. You'll see Adina take off and go up there to Sidney Lehman Catholic over the Labor Day weekend. You'll see a lot of the Circleville runs a really good one. There's a lot of different tournaments that people go. So when you go and you play in a try or you play in some of these tournaments, you're able to get more elite competition and you're able to get more styles of play. Now, as far as the 5-set match goes, if you can get elite, but it kind of goes back, this will make sense to you, it kind of goes back to when baseball went to the 27 dates. Volleyball, if you're going to try to play, you're going to play a lot through the weeknight then if you're going to play some of those, or you're going to play a lot more dates. A lot of coaches don't like that. They like their routine. League play will start here in about another week, and if your league plays like Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Thursday, coaches don't want to mess with that routine. If they're playing Tuesday, Thursday, they don't want a Monday night non-league. So they just avoid that altogether, and I think that's why that you see more of those multiple matches on a Saturday.
So do you think that playing less sets over the course of the season can impact a team positively or negatively? Because sometimes you're going to just win in 3 anyway.
Yeah, I don't. Right. I don't think it impacts the team. Now, could it impact an individual's stats?
Yeah.
Like milestones, like we live in such a day of numbers, I guess. You know what I mean? Because, you're going to play less. But I've always said, too, like, if you think of some of the heyday years of Wheelersburg or Adina or like, they're whooping everybody in 3, how many points are being scored anyway? So, I guess individually it could hurt you statistically, particularly in terms of not your averages, but your overall milestone numbers, I guess. But I don't, nothing jumps out at me as hurting them. I guess the only thing I would say is, going back to scheduling, is if you haven't been tested at some point, you just don't know how your kids will respond the first time you're on the brink of elimination. The first time someone pushes you or pushes you into one of those fifth set sprints to 15. So I guess in that sense, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was just kind of, some of the things I wanted to throw out at you scheduling wise. Do you have anything else you want to put a cap on?
No, I think we'll put a cap on it. I mean, we're going to have 3 more volleyball streams, and I think by the time we get together next week or two, we'll really have a sense of how some of these conference races are going to start to preview out.
And then let's move over to soccer now. One of the things that we talked about last week was the role of the goalie a little bit, and I had a very knowledgeable soccer fan. I knew this will post on there. I had someone make it soccer outside.
I know you were really excited. We do get a lot of feedback, but you're right, not a lot of soccer.
Yeah, not a lot of soccer feedback. They brought up they thought that because I had said this goalie, like when we made the comparison to basketball, that the goalkeeper was kind of the point guard, and they had argued that the center back was more of the point guard of the team. At which point, my argument was, well, I played with some center backs that I wouldn't want to be running the show. That was my argument. But they make a very good point. Is like you have to have a really quality leader in the back of your defense. I was watching Ted Lasso like last night, and literally like they're doing something, not doing a spoiler, but they're like bringing on new players, and the player did something that was like the perfect play of like a center back being a leader, and I was like, okay, they were right. It was just just seeing.
Now, in fairness to you, I might have baited you into that a little bit with my soccer stuff, so I'll take a little bit.
No, but I thought I had a really good point, but I'm just saying I think it can be a variety. It's just got to be a really good leader, and it's going to be someone that can see the whole field, so that center back can really be a key part of that. It could also be the goalie, but it's got to be someone that's a leader, and I think that's the point that was being made was, it's not necessarily one certain spot. It's just you got to have somebody that can see the field, understands what's going on the field, knows what the team is trying to do. But that's why when you look at like Team USA, Tim Ream was a 39-year-old center back, was their captain. And you see a lot of captains that are those center backs, and that's why you do see that a lot, especially at the higher level. So I'll give that to them.
Well, what's amazing about that too is when I thought more about that, if you take the defense off the field for a second and just picture it from a goalie perspective, it's such an incredible area for the one person to cover. Mm-hmm. Common sense tells you that the people in front of them have to be doing something pretty well to at least, strength it up. It's just like the blocker in volleyball funneling it to a certain area. Same way. So that's what sometimes we force feed the individual part of it when in reality it all goes back to the team concept.
Yeah, and it's it's such a large field for you to cover at all times, and people will throw out the offsides thing on like, oh, they don't like the offsides rule, and they think it would open things up a little bit more, and it's like, well, you're still playing the whole field. Like you're playing this massive field. It's bigger than a football field.
Yeah.
And you have to defend the entire thing. You can't just defend this little area. So like it's like the one thing that kind of evens it out for the defense slightly, because like you said, in football, it's really hard to play defense at the high school level with that, especially when you got some of these players, some of the really skilled players that we've seen. So I actually, when I was putting out I kind of like, this week was so long that I'd like completely just blanked on the amount of soccer that I did cover. Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about one of the really good matches that I saw last week, and I wasn't able to get to the Wheelersburg-Medford game because of, it started off that Friday or the Thursday night football. It kind of took away some of the shine from one of the really highly anticipated matches of the season. I'm gonna make sure to get down there for the second matchup of Wheelersburg with a 3-2 win over Medford on Thursday night. I got to see Wheelersburg and Lucasville Valley. I think Wheelersburg, Lucasville Valley, Medford are three of the top teams that we're going to see in our area this year. Southwestern is going to be really solid. Northwest is as well. You're going to see some really talented teams down inside a county. But this is where kind of the feedback came in a little bit. Center back for Lucasville Valley, Nick Queen, is him and Thad Lansing. Thad Lansing, who was their shortstop on the baseball team. Both of them are outstanding baseball players as well, played in the Final Four. You've got some really talented pieces that can see the field and are physical, and I thought they did a great job of handling what's a really talented young group for Wheelersburg. That's a inexperienced group, but it doesn't mean they're not talented because they graduated so many senior starters from last year. But they added Corbin Stratton, who they were really excited for. Last year as a freshman, he gets hurt late in the season. He was cleared for the Final Four, but it's just at that point, it's going to be really tough to put somebody in at that point in the season. He scored on one of his first touches for Wheelersburg. He scored against Minford as well. Adding him with Colt Schwamberger and Carson Eastep, that's going to be a really dynamic group the more and more they play together. And for Valley to hold them to only one goal was really impressive.
When you use the term group, it kind of reminds me that we've been talking about it all day here in terms of the other sports, right?
Yeah.
Having the group, same way on the offensive side. Yeah, when you're a defensive focus, I mean, the ability to try to take the one person away, okay, maybe you can, but like if you have that second score and that balance that we talked about last week, that's got to be a big factor. And it sounds like that's what's separating some of these teams to be elite.
Yeah, and that's what's going to make Wheelersburg so difficult to stop is they've always had the one, but usually that one has had a second. So you had Nick Sylvia. Before Nick Sylvia, you had Max Hagens.
Right.
Before Max Hagens, you had Aaron Jolly. Well, all of those players, Hagens played with Jolly. Sylvia played with Hagens. And now Eastep, played with Sylvia, where it would have been Eastep and Stratton last year. But now you have those two, and they're going to be playing together for 3 years. That's going to make them a really fun group to watch over the next few years. Yeah. Also, I got to see on the girls' side that Wheelersburg team, and good luck, like to the area, just good luck, because you got Coach Eastep has moved over. Well, not moved over, has shifted a little bit because he's going to coach the boys and girls, and you could just see, oh my goodness, they are going to be a lot to deal with. I mentioned Aaron Jolly. Well, you've got his sister now playing over there on the girls' side. She had a hat trick in their opener. Really impressed with what she was able to do. Ella Hochstetler, state champion in the discus last year with mono. And she wins the discus, gets third in the shot. She's unbelievable. She's just got a great nose to the ball, very physical player. Mackenzie Mullins. I'm just going to name off players that you're going to know from other sports as well. Mackenzie Mullins had the walk-off in the regional final for them. A really good interview with her coming up is going to come out this week. It's going to be part of our SOSA Sound Bites. Is going to come out. She's an outstanding midfielder. You got Ella McGraw. The McGraw name from there as well. They're a team that just does outstanding things, and then you add in they're even more organized now than Ava Archer playing defense. She made a run the other day that ended up getting an assist on the play. And then I say that, and they kind of dominated a really good Lucasville Valley team. So, I mean, there's some really good girls soccer on that side as well. Medford's another really good girls team. Just keep an eye out on Cider County when it comes to soccer this fall.
I have some detailed scheduling questions for you on soccer and how they impact everything. Before we do that, any other offensively, any other scores you want to highlight there?
Yeah, I thought that Unioto's Ellie Myers, she played a lot of defense in the past. She's moved forward in their first two matches. She had a pair of hat tricks, one in each, and against a really good McLean team. Had a hat trick and a nice win there. They did lose on Saturday to a really good Logan program. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye out on them. Logan's a team to keep your eye on, but Ellie Myers, really big-time standout for that Unioto team. And then also Logan Elms drew Stant. He had 5 goals in their 5-0 win over Piketon. That sets a new school record for Logan Elm. That's a program that's kind of had their ups and downs throughout the past, but they've had some really nice teams, and for him to have 5 goals in one match is outstanding. And hopefully we'll get some more things that we can celebrate throughout the year, but that's that's 2 players that I really wanted to point out.
Good stuff. Hey, on the scheduling here, I want to go a couple different ways. First, let me ask you this. So, first of all, like with soccer, sometimes just because you're in a conference, your conference may not have a league. Or if your league does have a soccer league, not every program in that sport might be established, so you might want to do a little bit more of a single round, double round. Comment on that if you want, in terms of like what you would like to see more conferences do, but that certainly has to impact your non-conference schedule.
Yes.
Number one, it does because of the number of matches you need, but then again, going back to the quality you want to play. Your thoughts on that?
So I'll start with like the SVC. When the SVC was really getting soccer going, they were playing on Mondays. They're playing girls then boys. I think they flipped that every couple of years, like where the girls will play second or the boys will play second. It's just kind of, I think it just depends on the year. But there was talk about doing a double round. And I think that was kind of shot down in general as far as kind of Unioto went. And I think Zane Trace at times kind of shot that down because different times they had some elite teams as well. And if you have up-and-coming programs, that can be really difficult if you're going to play 8 league games and maybe 6 of them are going to be against teams that are really trying to get their footing as far as the program goes.
Yeah.
So I think that was something the SEC did that was really smart. So when they had, at one point they had 5 teams, they're down to 4 now on each side. But when they had 5 teams, they played a single round with the option to play a second round. So if Zane Trace and Westfall wanted to play twice, because if they're pretty even, you can do that, but only the first one's going to count as far as the league goes. And I think that was something really smart that league did. And then once it kind of stepped back to, hey, you're only going to play 3 league games as opposed to 4. And it also would be 6 as opposed to 8. I think that was a big improvement for them. In the SOC, I know that you play, that is going to be a double round, and that can be kind of difficult as far as like Lucasville Valley goes, where they are going to be but Ironton St. Joe, also a quality side on their side. I know South Webster moved over to the bigger side a few years ago. So when you're playing a double round, if your league is really good, like the SOC is, it doesn't hurt you as much in the non-conference. Now, with the OVC outside of really Gallia Academy, Rock Hill for a while on the girls' side, but really Gallia Academy on the boys' side, they play a double round, and that can really hurt your non-conference because then you're trying to find different teams to play because you only have so many matches. You have 17 matches, and if you're playing 12 in your league, then that can be really difficult to schedule. So that's where you've got to really look at your non-conference in that to address it. And then also with soccer, sometimes it's where you're at. Like your location can be really difficult. I know the teams inside of county go over and play a lot of teams from Kentucky in their non-conference because sometimes it's not viable to go north all the time in your non-conference. I just think it's, you have to look at some of the established programs like at Athens, Alexander, even though they're typically a smaller school when it comes to soccer, they've been an outstanding program. They're one of now they made it to the Final Four, I think it was a year after COVID. They made it to the Final Four, and that was their first time after they had been to the regionals a crazy amount of times, kind of South Webster-ish, as South Webster has made it to the regionals a whole lot of times and haven't been able to break through.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to kind of prepare yourself for. Like South Webster, you're trying to, and they do it in all their, like if you check out double overtime, Coach McClintock kind of brought it up. It was like, we want to be ready for the tournament. And that's something they always do. And I think that's where the quality of your non-conference schedule comes into it as well.
The last thing I had, and I guess I looked at it as a soccer thing, volleyball thing. Maybe I should have put this at the beginning. Maybe we can clip it or soundbite it because I want more feedback from all sports on this. It was brought to my attention, one of the biggest feedback things I got this week. People were asking me, the Unioto Jackson football game was such a big deal. Why don't we do more Thursday night? Would you support Thursday night, Saturday night? And I said, absolutely not. And they said, what do you mean? I said, no. I said, because we don't need it.
Yeah.
It's fun every now and then when the schedule fits. But to the point you made, football Friday night more than rules every resource in the world. And rightfully so, it's the money or whatever. But if we start pushing Thursday night, if we start pushing Saturday night, it's not fair to the other fall sports. Like, as a school administrator, I want my students to go and watch the volleyball team, our soccer teams. You know, I know you may not go watch, but I want us to be following and supporting our golfers. You know what I mean? I want our golfers to be able to go and play and not be missing out on that. So, like, I don't know if you agree with that. I mean, no one's going to doubt how incredible that was on Thursday night. You could argue that if it was on Friday night, it'd still been big, but maybe not as big because other people would have been going back to their home schools or whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of people that don't share that. Your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. Like, I know when I was in school, we played one Saturday night game, but there's a lot of times where, you know, if that Unioto Chillicothe Saturday night volleyball match, if it's a week later, they're probably not playing it on Saturday night because it's college football.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the argument at the time, like, oh, we're not going to play Saturday night anymore because people aren't really watching. They eventually moved it to Saturday afternoon, which I completely disagree with that because, you know, I don't think it should be played like that. But I think it does take away from the other sports if you do that every week. I loved it, you know, on Thursday, but at the same time, I get back to my house and I'm starting to update our Norfolk Animal Clinic scoreboard, and I'm like, hey, there's a lot of other games, and I think that might have pushed our viewership of the night too. Is you had people that were at other games, and I think there was 4 different football games that night, and then there were soccer games around the area, volleyball games around the area. There was a golf
and if you want
match.
to do it on opening night, I guess I'm open-minded to it. I some years, depending on when they start the things, like, again, volleyball wasn't even supposed to be started until, but I don't like to see it be a habit throughout the whole year, I guess. I'm okay with the specialties at the beginning of the year or whatever, but I don't know that I would support that all year.
I completely agree with that. I think it's the during the week tends to be the time for the non-football sports. And I think we had to give them their time because those kids work just as hard. And we got to be able to give them the crowds they deserve, the also that they're not missing out on the other things, as you said. Like, you don't want them to miss out on those games. Now, a kind of cool thing that happened because Northwest played on Thursday, they did play South Webster on Friday night. So that's where you can be mindful of that as well in the future. So if you're going to do it, I think that has to be the trade-off. Or you maybe play a volleyball match Friday night instead if you're going to move the football. That's if you're going to do it. You have to do it that way because then you give your kids a chance to maybe I know they made the football Friday night as the week 0 type of thing, and not a whole lot of people do it though, and I do think that's kind of a missed opportunity. I think that'd be a great.
I think students like football Friday night. You were talking to me earlier about the volleyball schedule, and like, you know, someone who coached high school girls for a long time, like, I think a Friday afternoon practice is hard to get focused and get, you know, depending on what time you get out of school. Kids want to go. Some girls might cheer as well. Some might be in the band. Some might be there's a lot going on there. I just think football Friday night has its own thing, and rightfully so, for the event itself. But let's not get in the way of the other fall sports on their nights.
Well, I think that even carries over into other sports, other seasons as well.
It does.
Because if your league plays Saturday night for basketball, that Friday afternoon practice is not very good,
Right.
because there's so many things of like it's the weekend and
Yeah.
like you're getting ready to go. Like usually it's the weekend, but we're playing a game tonight. But that after school practice is usually not very good in anything.
Yeah.
And
No,
I know
that's fair.
I know when I played soccer in high school, unless we played on Saturday, we weren't practicing on Friday. Like we'd go home after school. We would, maybe we would meet and have a team meal or something, but we would, for the most part, we'd go get ready for the Friday night game. Yep. And we would go get ready to tailgate and grill poorly before the games and different things. And, it was just, that's kind of what Friday was. And Friday's football.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we need to keep it as.
I think so.
Yeah. But we loved it at the same time.
No, yeah,
Coverage, so want to make sure to keep that included. So let's go down. We haven't talked about it yet this year, but let's talk about golf. So when we talk about golf, your schedule can come into a lot of your schedule. Like when you look at how you schedule, your league is going to play where the league's going to play. Well, maybe the league's not where you're going to play in the postseason. So how important is it to get to, when you play, to get to a lot of different courses?
It is crucial, and you're right. Like a lot of times what happens is, you're playing on some of your local golf courses, and they might be set up a little bit shorter, a little bit more high school friendly. And then like anything, as you start to break out a little bit, probably the biggest thing in today's golf becomes distance. If you look to here locally in our area, in our southeast, the main southeast area, some of your tournament sites in the early rounds, your Crown Hill, your JCs, your Elks down in Portsmouth, some of those, there's probably going to have to be a little bit of length involved, or you got to get off the tee a little bit. That's a factor. So then what happens is when you want to start to push, like any other sport, if you're looking to push further ahead in the postseason, you not only got to tackle those courses, but you're going to have to get yourself to a point where you get used to some faster greens, some tighter fairways, a little bit more penalty strokes come into play, a little bit more water, a little bit more whatever it may be. So it's like anything else. You're trying to see where your program's at, and you're trying to put them in position. You always want to prepare them for the league courses because you're trying to win your league and so forth. But if you have some individuals, the problem is in golf, you may have 2 or 3 individuals ready to go take on a certain challenge that if you put your team in a certain event, what you're doing to your 4, 5, and 6 man is almost unfair. So sometimes, like what I've seen programs do, is they try to go out and maybe see if they can't individually get some of their kids in some events to allow them that experience or so forth, because certain people aren't ready to go play. Same way with the 9-hole versus 18. The other thing you have to train some of your kids for tournament success is playing the 18 holes. And, if you're a kid out there walking and you're shooting, over 100, a lot of times 18 holes is a mental grind. It almost becomes, not fun to the point where you're afraid you'll lose kids. So there's so much that goes into if I've got a kid who is going out and shooting 36, 37, 38, 39, but then I've also got kids on my team going out shooting 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, then I've got some unique things I got to do to prepare both of them to help them improve.
Yeah, and then, course selection incredibly important but also when you're playing on some of those things, how important is it to look at those Saturdays? Because if you're playing, in a sectional that's down at the Portsmouth Elks, but you're located over in, I don't know, North Adams, like it's going to be hard to get there after school to be able to play the full course on a weekday.
Yeah, you're not going to play 18 holes on a school night unless, some conferences do take the kids out of school to play the all-day events. But you're right. At some point for a tournament, you have to put your kids in an 18-hole setting. So a lot of times you'll get the Saturday invite. Now, golf starts earlier.
Yes.
So some of these kids maybe were in some early in the year, those types of things. More times than not, they'll at least get the opportunity to go. But it's like anything. If you're really serious about it, you definitely want to get yourself out to some of these courses on your own. But again, the 18 holes is a factor for sure.
Yeah, and then you've got to look at some of these programs that are in really good position because we had some really outstanding returners coming back. Zane Trace's Rosella Lovato, Anna Helper. Lovato finished 7th last year. Helper was 22nd. Their team played really well last year at the state. West Falls, Brendan Bigler, and their entire team.
They're deep. They're really deep.
Yeah.
That program's been on a nice run, and they're really deep.
Yeah, so those are teams that are gonna look to play in different places. Piketon's Layla Kelly, Elena Hitchcock, they made a nice look. They made it to the state tournament last year. Waterford has a lot coming back.
Yeah.
Reese Lang finished 9th last year in the state. Brock Hurley had a nice tournament as well. They have more coming back. Manchester had a really nice season. They did not make it to the state, but they had a nice season last year. They returned much of their players as well. And then Lynchburg Clays, Nolan Wilkin, and Christian Beachy tied for 26th last year.
Lynchburg's
Outstanding program.
had a nice start to the year here again.
Yeah, so is that something like, especially before school starts, if you're those programs or somebody else, like, that you're going to have some outstanding players, is that like, hey, we're going to try to play at one of these really nice courses just to get ready early, even if maybe in your league you're playing at places that aren't as
just not as much of a what would be called a tournament course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, there's no doubt about it. I know early in the year, a lot of high schools went over to Snow Hill. It's a beautiful golf course. And again, what that does is it forces kids to put the long iron and the driver in the hand a little bit more, get used to some of the quicker greens. And again, that can be really, really frustrating to the lower level player. So again, you have to figure out like where your whole team is. But no, that's an outstanding point. Before your school starts, get your kids out there and get into some of those, because then as you get into your conference play, depending on how big your conference is, you're going to have a lot of practice rounds leading up to each of your league matches.
Yeah, but then let's talk about your specialty to finish our show, which is cross country.
Yeah. I did run 2 years of cross country.
You ran 2 years of cross country. That's 2 more years than I ran. So you're our cross country expert here. When you're looking at the season there as well, I know you're building up. You're trying to peak at the right time as far as your races go. How much do you think that is factored into what races people are looking for? Because, I mean, every other sport you're playing multiple to get to your league. In cross country, you're running one race to determine your league. So you have a whole lot more flexibility. So how much do you think that factors in?
The league's interesting because, well, a lot of leagues are just so unbalanced anymore. There's not a whole lot of competition at the league. The league's almost assumed by some of our elite programs, and they're trying to peak almost a month later anyway, because they've got their district, regional, and state. But I think on the scheduling there, I think there's some golf analogy there too. I think you want to get your kids out on certain types of courses that are going to push them a little bit, give them legitimate times. The beauty of cross country is a lot of times you are competing against yourself so much throughout the year. But at the same time, if you're an elite runner, I think there's something to be said putting yourself in some elite fields, because I think when you run around with like competition or elite competition, it pushes you just a little bit more there as well. So you see that a little bit in the programs. I've even seen some boys and girls teams start to split up if it makes more sense, because maybe this program's a little bit a higher level, this one's not as much. Unfortunately, because of money, what happens more and more now is one, maybe two people are not only doing the high school boys and girls, they're doing the junior high at the same time. So they're all traveling together. There's just so much that goes into it. And it's so difficult when you have this high level runner or golfer or whatever it may be, and then you have this level. How do I keep them both from how do I help both of them get better without making the one want to quit? You know what I mean? Like, because I need enough kids to score. And at the smaller schools, that really becomes a factor. I know a couple examples. We'll get into some numbers later on when more and more races start.
Yeah.
Right now, I know a couple with junior high and high schools that have 2 or 3 really nice runners, and they're in jeopardy of maybe not posting a team score.
Right.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think you have to be kind of creative and try to make it to be, if you don't have the kids that love to run, you have to find some kids that love to compete, but also don't love to compete so much that if they get 75th out of 78, that they're going to stop doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to go get a 7th grader and say, run a couple miles for me on Saturday. All right, whatever. They're 13. You know what I mean? But like, it's another thing to get a junior in high school to do it. That's a little trickier in terms. So it's like any other sport. Getting some kids early on and getting them built up, that's important.
Yeah, and it's something that I think our area does a really great job of.
Yeah, we have some good programs for sure.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm excited to see. Kind of followed Duke cross country this year because of Sophia Solosi on that, and that's obviously elite in that level as well. So we'll see if anyone can kind of fill into that, because I mean we've seen Fairfield Union, Athens, Unioto for years has been really good, but Athens and Fairfield Union have really stepped up in the last few years. We've seen White Oak have some
Fairland down there.
Fairland, yes. You've got some outstanding programs, and really look forward to seeing how they continue on. After some really key graduates.
Yeah,
graduations.
I'm anxious to see some of these other sports get into it a little bit, so we can kind of get a sense on who's going to do what. Yeah, it's about that time.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more volleyball and soccer throughout this week. We're going to see some more golf scores. It looks like it's going to be a great week as far as the weather goes. So I think we're going to see some more understandable golf scores than what sometimes you're dealing with. I know if it's too wet out there, I don't like to play because it just affects my shot too much. And that's why my scores aren't as good as.
That's why.
Yeah, that's also why I haven't golfed in like 4 years. So it's It's a great time to go out and support the non-football sports because it's going to be great weather this week. So be sure to get out and check those out. You're going to see a lot of information from us coming throughout the week. As far as SOSA goes, just this week, we had Kenneth A. the third covered a game. He wrote an article on the Zane Trace Logan game. I did. Brock did. Carson did. Austin did as well, and then Chris Davis also was able to get us some highlights as well from a game. So we had a lot of different people. Pictures from Raymond Gladle. Your boy had a picture, first published picture in like 4 years for me as well. Yeah. From
which one was that?
It was Julie Baker just running. That was the only picture.
I didn't know it was you.
Yeah, that's the only picture they used. I took a lot more than that.
That should have been like the headline.
Like I took that.
Forget Baker. We know he can run like Johnny Bruce.
So, so we'll see. And then you'll be out at least 4 games this week.
So Waverly for volleyball, Gallia Academy for volleyball, Chillicothe for football, and then back to Unioto for volleyball.
Yeah. Should be. Make sure you check out all week long here on our YouTube page, also all of our socials. So even if it's on X,
you and I will be Thursday night.
Yeah,
Carson will be with me on the other ones, and then what are you up to on Friday? You think? Are you doing that Chillicothe game? Or are you going elsewhere?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Brock literally can walk to Hermstein Field at Obadiah Harris Family Complex, so he can walk there. So he may sign up for that. Which, whatever. I would like to be at that game, but we'll see. Like I said, I know Austin's going to be at Meigs at Symmes Valley. Raymond, we'll see where he ends up because he's starting college on Monday. Yay, Raymond.
Wow.
Yay. Still came out and got some really good pictures throughout the week. And I think we're not going to see as many pictures throughout the week from Raymond. We're still going to see the football Friday nights, which is going to be awesome because he's probably going to be like, I think as soon as OU sees some of the pictures he's going to take there and be like, oh, we want him. And he's got to do that if he's got that option. So, you're going to see a whole lot of different things from us throughout the week. I know, like I said, I'm going to be at Fairfield on Monday. Throughout the week, I'll be with you guys on Tuesday down at Waverly. Thursday, I think I I'd thrown in a game. Let me see.
That's
real quick.
us.
Yeah, Thursday.
Thursday's
Yeah,
us
that's
down here
that's
together.
where I'm going to be Thursday. Maybe Wednesday. I just sleep. Nope. I'm going to North Adams. Doubleheader there. That one's going to be like leave as soon as school's over and drive down there. Because,
Who do they play?
Lynchburg Clay for boys and girls soccer.
Yeah.
So that's going to be leaving as soon as school's over because they don't have lights. So
Nice.
let's hope for a nice night that night. And then Friday, I don't have anything right now. So we'll see.
Okay.
On that one, and then Saturday I'll be with you guys at least because I think we're gonna have to run the camera that night. So I'll probably run the camera for that Chillicothe Unioto game or match, and I may hit a soccer match earlier in that day as well. So look forward to being not busy at all. I think Sunday I'll sleep some. We'll see. Keep an eye out on an announcement on next week's overtime as well. We might have to shift something.
Tweak that around, yeah.
So, but Haynes Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show Sunday nights throughout the year. Besides Labor Day, it's gonna be a Monday on Labor Day because your boy's coming back from Dallas and is gonna come rolling in and do that. Yeah.
Nice.
So we kind of made that decision yesterday as well. So look forward to a lot of sports.
Yeah.
And if you see me being real tired at one of these games, you'll know why.
We appreciate the
Yeah.
feedback too. I'd love to get people's feedback on that Thursday night thing.
Yeah.
Am I looking at that wrong? Maybe I'm missing something on it. But I mean, it's just I just think that it kind of keeps everything organized for the fall and gives everybody a chance to have their times.
Yep, I agree with that as well. So maybe we're off on that, but you never know. So, got anything else?
That'll do it.
All right. For Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.